Briggs,
Here.
Casper.
Here.
Holman, Bushky.
Here. Next is citizens' comments. Do we have any citizens' comments? Seeing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda, which consists of the minutes from May 7th and both the water and wastewater bills. So we'll take a motion in a second and have discussion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
There was one I had marked at work, and I won't be able to find it.
I have something on page 2. Seal kit fitting canister assembly, $2,321. Is that for the UV system for the treatment plant and the contact chamber?
Is it the number starting at 60 or 61?
61. It says Trojan UV.
Oh, yeah, that's for the replacement parts for the UV system. I think we've made it 2 years on those so far, so it's time to reorder.
Right.
Any other questions? Now we'll take roll call on that.
Alderperson Newman.
Aye.
Juvenile.
Aye.
Commissioner Engel.
Aye.
Briggs.
Aye.
Casper.
Aye.
Bushky.
Aye. Next is update from MSA Professional Services regarding sewer facilities planning progress.
I'm Steve Sal from MSA. I've been here a number of times in the past, but I know we have some new members on the commission, so I want to be able to come in here and introduce myself and the team. I have Joe Martorano here with me as well. He's been project engineer, a lot of the design so far. If you look in the past meeting minutes or YouTube video, you may see Greg Gunderson. He's my supervisor. He kicked off a lot of this early facility planning and discussion with Mayville a couple of years ago. So it says an updated discussion from MSA regarding sewer facilities planning. The facility plan was actually completed last year. So just to clarify, we had a public hearing last year in June 2023, and that was submitted to DNR. And we received approval from DNR back in August 2023. We started the design of the treatment plant upgrade back in September. And we've had a couple of discussions with Courtney on milestones that we've made it so far. So we had a 30% discussion with her staff back in March. A lot of the stuff we had done up to that point was scanning the buildings to get a three-dimensional model for each one of the existing structures, so we could build our models and update the design. We did a lot of surveying. We had some things in the city's end that we needed to get worked out. So the easement on the driveway from the north side of the site, I think that's still in progress. And we evaluated a lot of the equipment out there and determined what type of equipment we want to be installing in there based on costs and what fits best for the existing treatment plant. We have a 60% discussion with Courtney later this week. So we'll be kind of going over more of the room layouts, some of the final decisions on HVAC and plumbing needs inside of each one of the rooms, and then discussing a little bit more of the construction sequencing. So a lot of the things we did to phase the design, both in facility planning, up to this point, have to do kind of keeping that existing treatment plant running while we're building new things and upgrading things so you don't lose treatment. Our plan is to have a 90% review in August and then get this submitted to DNR late August would be our target, so that we can get out for bid this fall and get you guys rolling. Any questions for me on that? Okay, thank you.
I just a question on funding. So have you been applying for the funding along the way?
The funding application will go in September.
When you get that,
That's what the plans expected to be submitted to DNR for funding applications at the same time.
makes sense.
And we're eligible for the extended principal forgiveness as well as some energy. And was there some phosphorus?
You'd be
Funding
eligible.
as well.
Well, you are eligible if you make it into the scoring criteria, which you will likely do for Clean Water Fund principal forgiveness, which would be a percentage of your overall project up to a cap, I believe, of $2.1 million. And then there's a cap on phosphorus principal forgiveness as well, and then you'd be subject to some potential energy credit savings from focus on energy.
On a total cap of 3 different funding sources within that they have
Potentially, the
potential.
focus on energy dollar amounts could be relatively low.
Okay,
What is the percentage then on the clean water funds for the principal forgiveness?
You would max it out.
That's determined by them?
Yes.
So if it's $1 million, they'll give us a percentage of that as
You would
principal
be, yes, you're gonna be maxing out the based on the cost of the project.
so that 2.1,
Yes.
basically, yeah.
That's subject to change next year.
Well, we're gonna be maxing out the maximum dollar percentage.
Mhm. Just capped at that amount.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Next is update and discussion on town and country engineering on wells 2, 3, 5.
We have some new faces here as well, so I'm going to introduce myself. I'm Greg Dressler with Town and Country Engineering. I'm Vice President of the firm and managing the water work that's currently going on at well number 4 and working on the current project to rehab facilities at wells 2, 3, and 5. We talked early this year about the project when we got going on this. The decision at that time was to rehab all 3 of these wells at the same time, just because the work that we're doing at each of these facilities is very similar. We're rehabbing the pressure filters at each of the facilities, we're replacing all the valves, we're automating the backwash sequencing, and we are doing general renovation of the building, some HVAC and plumbing upgrades, and a lot of electrical upgrades as well. What I wanted to give you an update on tonight was just kind of where we're at progress-wise, give you a little bit of an update of projection on costs, and wanted to bring one design decision to you as well. So our schedule has us, we're probably about 70% complete on drawings and specs right now. We are submitting to the DNR by the end of this month in order to secure our place in line for loan funding. June 30th is the deadline for loan applications, and with that, we have to have reviewable plans and specs submitted to the DNR at that same time. We put together a cost estimate kind of quickly last week, just trying to figure out where we're at cost-wise. When we had originally talked back early part of this year, we thought we would come in with a project at around $3.5 million all in. We're currently sitting probably closer to $4.5 million all in. Part of that is escalating construction costs. Part of that is that we are looking at a small expansion of the building at well number 3 in order to put in more accessible HMO, which is the chemical that you use to remove radium in your facility there, to put in a proper storage room for that HMO facilities, as well as to put in a new electrical room. Right now, that well is about as jam-packed with stuff as you can get. You have electrical equipment hanging on the walls all over, and quite honestly, most of that would not meet code under current standards. So what we'd be doing is creating a proper electrical room, putting all of the electrical facilities separate from the water. They don't play well together, but separating that out in a separate room and in order to protect that equipment. So that is about a 12 by 30 addition onto the east side of that facility. West side of that facility.
Is that old reservoir going to be in the way there, Greg?
The old reservoir would stay right where it is. We would still use that as a backwash tank. We'd be basically looking at just expanding on the, turn around there.
South side.
South side, thank you,
South side, you have more.
of that facility.
How about the height of the ceiling there, and the roof? Is that a problem?
It's not great,
Yeah.
but we have a plan to kind of work within the facilities that are there. taking a close look at the air releases that we have to put on there. What Mike's referencing there is the ceiling in there is somewhere right around 10 feet high. The pressure filter that sits in there is an 8-foot diameter tank. It has some low profile struts underneath of it to support it. And you have maybe 18 inches or so of clearance over top of that tank to squeeze in air releases and that kind of equipment. When that building was initially put up in the 1930s,
I think I believe so.
1948.
48, thank you. There was no provisions made for a pressure filter at that time. That got expanded in the late 90s, early 2000s. And the engineer at that time kind of made the most of a not great situation and was able to squeeze everything in there. And it's quite literally a squeeze. Now, as we look to its future, and with bringing that up to code, we are looking at that building addition.
Well, how old is that filter?
70s?
77, I believe.
Well, 4 or 5?
And 3 is,
3, I mean, 3 or 5?
3 is like, isn't that 72 and
No,
5
that
77?
iron filter was in the late 90s, 98, I want to say.
Is it?
So one was 1977, one is 1995, and one is 1998, if I'm not mistaken.
So that's
I-
not gonna have to be replaced soon.
No, we are renovating that filter. So with each of these filters, what we're doing is we're taking out all of the media. We are blasting and recoating the entire tank. We are having to replace the floor of one of those filters. Another one, we have provisions in there for it to be inspected, and I'm anticipating having to do some spot repairs in there as well. So what we would do is include provisions for additional work on that in the bid structure. Just so that if we get into it and we find that things are bad, we have provisions already in place to kind of move forward with that.
Are them access covers at well 3, are they up to code there? To get a person inside there?
Well, 3s, if I'm not mistaken, are something like 12 by 20. And I don't think there's any way in hell I'd get in there. But one of the things that I had on the bid form that I've been working on is to get an alternate price to replace all of those accesses. And oddly enough, a proper size one is only something like 16 by 22. So it's not a whole hell of a lot bigger, but I say that, I could probably get in through that. So none of these are huge in any sense, but it's all because of the pressure rating of that tank as well. So when we're done, you would basically be left with 3 fully rehabilitated filters, all new media, all new paint and coatings in there, all the process valves. Tim went through them with us. This one doesn't work, this one doesn't seal, this one, they're not good, so we're gonna replace them all. And then as part of that, we would also then automate that backwash sequence as well, so that you don't have to have an operator stand out there, manually turn all the valves as you go through and backwash a filter.
That optimize your energy usage as well, like timing, the time of day, potentially?
Correct. So as part of this, then we would also, I guess, a couple of other improvements there. Right now, some of those filters backwash, and directly or indirectly, that backwash goes to the river. So as part of this upgrade, we would be looking at directing all of those to the DNR, or to the sanitary sewer by way of backwash tanks there. So we would basically discharge it to a backwash tank, and then we would either have a small, well, in each case, we would have a small backwash pump that would then be turned on, remotely based on a time of day selection to discharge that to the sanitary sewer. So we don't overwhelm your sanitary sewer. You have oftentimes pretty predictable flow patterns at the wastewater plant where you're going to have a late morning peak flow. So we would discharge in the middle of the night when flows are generally down. A time like now where we've had storms, we've had lots of flow, you basically hold that water in that backwash tank and you release it any time during that week or the next week, just depending on
How often are they backwashed?
once a week.
Each one of them once a week?
And that's required by the DNR. There is a minimum of once a week that you have to backwash your filter. There's options that if by chance you had iron levels that were higher than where they are now, and you needed to do that more often, you could do that based on a differential setting where it's measuring the influent effluent pressures. You could also do that just by setting a timer and saying, you know what, every 5 days, we're gonna have it run. So all of that control will be built into the program as part of this.
So at well 3, if you want to add on to the building on the south side, does that mean moving that chemical chlorine room there? And can HMO and chlorine be stored in the same room?
They can be stored in the same room. What we're looking at doing is basically leaving that chlorine room as a room, almost a closet within that room. So it would still be able to be separated. You would still be able to ventilate that separate. You would still have your eye wash right there. But you would access it through a double door from the south side so that when they come in and fill it, they can do that a little bit more easily as well. One other improvement there that I did forget to mention is that we are looking at putting in backup generators at each of these facilities as well. Currently, only well number 5 has a generator. That generator is about 20 years old now. And we are looking at options for both rehabilitation of that generator and or replacement. It's looking like it's going to be very close to doing as far as your cost to replace it versus a major renovation of it. So we are kind of leaning towards replacing that generator.
Would it be better to have 2 generators there, one just for the lift station and one for the well?
No, we would look to basically put that lift station right there on that well generator, same as what you have now. So we talked about cost, we talked about kind of the scope of the project. The one design question that when I met with Courtney and Tim last week, we wanted to bring to you is sitting this page, hopefully in front of all of you. That's well number 5. And the plan, when we initially looked at it, was basically to, take the stone off the roof, replace the rubber membrane that's up there. For all intents and purposes, slap a new coat of paint on the exterior, make it as pretty as we could with a new coat of paint and a new roof, and call it good. Now, we wanted to take a step back and look at it. We've made a major investment at well number 4. Heard a lot of very positive feedback as to the aesthetics of that building. We wanted to at least raise the question of moving forward, what do you want this well to look like? And one of the options that we talked about, I guess looking at the exterior first, the exterior of that building is basically a fluted masonry. It's basically a concrete block with a 2-inch fluted edge on it to dress it up a little bit. So it doesn't look like a standard 8x16 cement block. Looks better than a cement block, but there's not a lot to it. We could stucco that, which would basically be putting a wire mesh over the exterior, and you would basically shotcrete it to then give it a stucco look. That would be one option. Another would be we could basically put nailers on there and insulation, and you would end up dressing that up similar to what we have at well number 4 with that cement board siding that has a very modern and aesthetically pleasing look to it. There was an option presented too of because this is an industrial park, could we or should we consider putting on something as simple as steel siding on there to kind of match the other buildings in the area? So part of it was the exterior walls. The other discussion was then the roof. Question was asked, what would it run to put a pitched roof on that instead of a flat roof? And on that pitched roof, put steel siding, steel sheeting to match what we did at well number 4. That is probably about a $70,000 upgrade over just replacing the flat roof. And to do siding or stucco instead of paint, we're probably looking at somewhere in a $40,000 to $50,000 adder to do either of those.
Is there any issues like structurally or leakage? I mean, I know the roof leaks, but were there any issues with the walls or anything with the brick block, I should say?
Any structural issues with
Yeah.
current block walls? No, there was a couple of areas where maybe there was some minor tuck pointing, but nothing, no visible leaks or anything there.
So you can go as simple as painting the thing and fixing the roof, or you can go to,
Correct.
Yeah.
So in the cost estimate that I put together, I went with what I'm going to call the base package of putting a new coat of paint on the exterior and putting a new flat roof on there. And it was big enough dollars that we wanted to have this discussion with this group of what would you like this to look like moving forward.
Well, what are we doing with the chemical storage on the inside? Are we just putting a wall inside?
We're creating essentially a chemical closet, I would call it, inside of that.
And if there's no provision going to be made if we have to add HMO there ever?
No, not at this time. We are looking at an option at well number 2 because that does have slightly higher radium numbers there, where we have a layout that I've reviewed internally with the staff of here's where we will fit HMO facilities in the future if needed. But we don't want to open up Pandora's box with the DNR by showing it on the drawings as future chemical storage area to the DNR. So we are creating it, what we're calling a additional storage space at this time, complete with double doors, that it would be as simple as putting in a tank and a skid in the future.
The hatch on the roof is good, adequate size for pulling the well, the hatch at well number 5?
At well number 5, yes. At well number 3, no.
No. Like you said, Greg, this is an industrial park, you know, we don't have to go as extravagant as we did at well number 4.
Well, we did this 4 because of residential.
Yeah, but be it an
Here we
industrial
don't
park,
have that
you know.
concern. I still like the steel roof and steel side.
over time, maintenance costs are a little lesser. What is the average lifespan of a rubber roof, like as such as this one?
So a rubber roof, you're normally gonna get a 20 or a 30-year warranty depending on the mill thickness of the roof.
Okay,
And with a steel roof, you're normally looking at a 50-year warranty on that.
All right, sure, there's no insulation in this existing building there, right, at well 5?
I don't-
Heating?
I don't think so.
We didn't have any of the original plans for that building. I'm gonna base it on past experience and say there's no real insulation there to speak of. If there is any, there's possibility that they put some insulation in the hollow cores of the masonry, but, and then there's probably 3 to 4 inches of foam up on the roof.
So the question is, do we want to do anything with the looks of the building? Other than painting and, well, you're not even going to see the roof, so.
So yeah, kind of a question of which direction everybody's leaning as far as,
Well, if we side it, we can insulate in between the siding and the existing walls. I think that would be a good thing.
Correct, and the same could be done with a stucco as well, where you would put an insulation board on there and you would get some additional R value there in the wall.
I think the big question is if you want to change the roof design.
That's probably the most expensive part.
and it's the most expensive, yeah.
It is gonna be the most expensive. There is, you know, I can only go out so far on those walls as far as building up that wall profile, if you will, because it is a 10-inch wide masonry block that's sitting on a 10-inch wide foundation wall, best we can tell.
How bad is that roof leak, Tim?
There's a good pond in there this morning. mean, we did have a lot of rain.
Not over the electrical cabinets, I hope.
No, it's not. It's kind of centrally located. It's not near town right now. They got that drain vent running through there too. It leaks by that quite a bit. And pitched roof will eliminate that.
How old is that roof now? That must be plenty old.
I had them look at it 5-6 years ago, and the guy told me to replace it then. Got a final that came, and we just never, we were hoping this was gonna happen.
Well,
Yeah.
currently it's rubber with rocks, is that?
Okay. It's rubber with ballast rung on top, right?
Yeah. But now the new ones, they don't use ballast rocks anymore.
Typically, no.
No, because we did it at Tank Center. That was 50 grand for quite a bit. And I was involved with the museum and that was about 50,000 too. And I go with that. 25, 30 years, they're guaranteed. The new membrane stuff is quite a bit better than the old.
Absolutely.
So what's the difference between just putting on replacing the existing roof and putting on a pitched roof, roughly?
Cost,
Yeah, how much?
Yeah, what's the cost?
about $70,000
More.
to go with the steel pitched roof. And that price can go up from there depending on whether we go with a standing seam like we did at well number 4, which is a very aesthetically pleasing look, or a more typical corrugated pattern on that as well.
So what's
Is it
the,
worth 70 grand to you?
what's the cost of the roof and with the rubber? You said 70 more with the metal, and you're looking at 50 years versus 30 years.
I believe I have an estimate of 35 or 40,000 a year.
Okay.
Built
And
into my
70
estimate.
more to go steel.
And remaining 20 more years for
Right.
the life of the roof, is that right?
Yeah.
What do you think? Is it worth it or not?
I don't think so. I wouldn't do it.
Gino says no.
I would prefer not.
You don't necessarily have a decision to make, just a discussion and opinions.
Oh, you don't got it
right?
on tonight?
Well, I'm gonna need some kind of
Direction as to, yeah, your opinion.
Because I need to prepare plans for this to submit
By
to
the
the
end of the
DMO.
month. I think from our consensus is just replace it.
With the rubberized.
Right.
And to be clear, I mean, I can plan to replace it in a rubber roof, and if by chance, somewhere between now and, let's just say we issue plans for bidding at the first of the year, if at some point along the way we decide that, you know what, we do have all this extra money laying around, we do want to buy a new roof.
Good luck.
I don't, yeah, that we would be able to go back to that and get that added on, but
Is
so
that,
that I'm able to bring some comedic relief.
Mike's kind of thinking steel roof. Where you at, Ken?
Well, I like the idea of 50 years. So I'm looking at that. Your aesthetics, like I said, it's industrial, but keep it industrial. I like the stucco idea too. I like to put some board, at least some insulation around the building with the stucco, a little facelift paint and doors painted and a nice roof. I think it would look nice, either or. I mean, you get 50 years or 30 years. I'm just looking at the 50. That's a nice chunk of, time.
Up to me.
And if
Is
you
that
need-
70,000 including modifying the hatch, because you're gonna have to do
Yeah, that's what
something with
I
that?
was gonna ask with that too.
It would, I would basically look to just box out that hatch, bring that up through the rafters, and then put a skylight on it, similar to what we did at Long before.
Let's just stick with the roof first. Mike thinks, where you at, Mike?
Tough decision. I like the 50 years like Ken does. But it's money, $70,000. It's an industrial park, we're not really too concerned about the aesthetics, are we? You don't want it to look like,
Okay, nobody looks at that building I drive past it 3 times, 4 times a day, and I don't know what it looks like.
Maybe you would look at it if it had a different
No.
roof on it.
But would,
Oh,
so,
that looks
so
sharp.
gaining our value would be
Yeah, somebody
important
would
though,
say,
as part
What
of
a
your
beautiful
decision.
building that
That's what I'm
is
getting.
among all these other tin houses.
Gaining some R value would be important to everybody though.
Do we heat that? Is it actually heated?
Oh,
Yeah, that building's heated, we are processing water in there, so it's not like we are keeping that at a balmy 70 degrees in there, but they do keep it at, right around 60 degrees in the winter.
Interesting to see how much the heating costs for that. I mean, that equipment generates its own heat, doesn't it?
No, you get a little bit of heat coming off the electrical, and a little bit of heat off that motor when it's running, but that motor runs a couple of times a day.
The big thing this time of year, Gene, is humidity in there.
That,
A lot of sweating on the pipes in there.
Correct.
Tank is always
It's
cold.
insulated.
Tank is always cold. You gotta,
the tank is sitting full of thousands of gallons of 50 to 55 degree water. So that's a natural chiller sitting within
A
a
day like today, it must have been sweating pretty good in there.
felt pretty good going in there.
So we gotta get better roof to get to the exterior walls.
Yeah,
Let's just go, let's go with the replacement roof for now, and like you said, we can always change our mind. Because that's gonna be insulated either way.
Correct.
But the walls are not. Now, if we get to the walls, I think if we go with the stucco with some insulation,
I think the people that work on the well too would rather have a flat roof than that. I don't think so.
And with the equipment they got now, they make quick work of anything.
Is July too late to provide you with like a solid answer on this with options, or
Really, I just need which way you're leaning to submit to the DNR.
there's not a decision, there's just
No,
direction?
the DNR cares about a lot of things that you're doing there. They care a lot less about something like a roof decision. So if we made that modification, I would update them with that.
You just generally have to justify it if it's unusual for funding purposes?
Correct.
By July 31st.
June 30th, I
June 30th.
June, okay. So, yeah, so
but he can always update it.
Right.
So I'm, replace the roof that's there and put insulation and what on the walls? Because I think we're all in agreement we want to insulate.
Stucco, then you can insulate it or siding, either or stucco would look better.
Metal siding.
What's cheaper, metal siding or stucco?
Burning strips.
three options.
Metal siding would be less expensive
I like the look.
because you would have enough competitiveness in that market, I'll say. There's not
And
as many folks that,
And it would be a generic, I mean, what we're going for aesthetic wise on these well houses is a generic component to it. If you drive by, you don't necessarily know what that is. We're not putting big letters on the walls anymore saying well number 5, but they're generic as can be, you don't know what it is.
I think you'd want to do like 3 foot of,
now you're talking dollars. You're gonna put
Yeah,
stone in
that'd be
it.
nice, but it's just
It
a
looks like
building
every
down
other
there. Building down there.
so are we in agreement that we want to insulate and steel side to siding?
Well, you should insulate it, at least do that.
That's gonna be an improvement, yeah.
Replace the roof and.
Insulate, steel side to siding, subject to change.
Let me proceed with that. I'll update it with the cost, so
I suppose with the stucco, there'd be more labor involved, is that what it is, that it costs more?
yes, it's also a matter of just finding folks that do stucco work. There's just not a lot of people that do that.
It's a spray-on, like a spray-on
It's
version, right?
kind of a
Like
shotcrete
shotcrete.
type thing. You strike it off and do it, but it's just,
We didn't have good luck with that tank down at the treatment plant.
That was gunite though, wasn't it?
Yeah, what's the difference between that and gunite?
Fins.
I'm not agreeing with Guy.
That's all.
Beaver.
That's what did it.
Difference.
And it fell off within 3 years.
Correct.
They had to come back and redo it.
We've seen, There are products that we've seen used on something like a digester at a wastewater plant where it is more of a spray foam type finish and then they put a hardened rust basically on it to give it an aesthetic look. They're not always pretty,
Well,
seldom pretty.
Steve,
There's a
we've
couple
been,
places
we've
in town that have
investigated
the
that
spray on
building.
foam.
And I don't know,
Oh, yeah.
was the
Right,
application
right on
incorrect
point.
or the,
Oh, it's cool with the
hard to
gravel.
say?
Cool with it.
It's hard to get a consistent product when you're spraying on
Yeah.
foam. To get a,
I think
So we all in agreement on that, replace the roof, metal siding with insulation.
so your initial,
we'll get it updated on our plans and we'll talk more once we have final cost estimates together on it. Go from there.
this product could go high-low, sway your decision on different things like that.
Say that again, quick.
Like different product of different siding options could go
Oh.
higher or lower with a, kind of a little volatile market
Correct.
there. So that could sway your opinion in the
If
future.
yes, there's plenty of products out there on the metal siding that are pretty affordable that we can
Okay, too.
not get you crap, obviously, but also get you a nice looking product.
That'll wear. That'll wear.
Yes.
It's fair.
Any other questions for me this evening?
You have direction? You
I have
good?
the direction I need. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Better than the last time you were here, huh? How was your ride home?
Eventful. Well, actually not as eventful as it could have been.
That was a terrible.
It wasn't bad.
Next is water report.
All right, hydrant in Short and Taylor Street was replaced. It was undersized, did not turn well, and had some severely reduced static flow. So we replaced that with an existing eddy that we had in stock. That day got a little eventful with, we found two services that didn't tie into the street. They tied in under a driveway through a lawn. So there's a little extra work there and then some hydraulic issues on Tamu Country's equipment, so. It was a rough day, but
Not me.
Town and Country under,
Construction.
one of you is gonna have to change your name.
Are we eventually gonna go back and take them laterals off that hydrant lateral?
Well, if we have a construction project, we'd like
Can
to,
we
but,
make a record of it that we know that's that way?
yep, and I do have it on GIS that it is that way, a little bit of a surprise there. Hydrant flushing continues until the 14th of this month. We have a new laptop ordered for meter reading. The current tablet's about, best we can figure, is about 10 years old. Most of its functions are not working for meter reading anymore. And then we've been ensured that we'll have the ability to make meter reading go a little smoother going forward. So that should be in about the next week. We received an update that mid-June is the new date for receiving the iron filter at well 4. Craig, does that still stand? But they're not nailing down a date, but they're giving us a timeline, so. The shop test was completed with LW Allen as well to go through upcoming SCADA functions and work through any issues. And Greg, again, I think it all went well.
That went well.
Great.
The panel is shipped and should be sitting in well
We're
for.
on our way. Audit team is finishing up and will be present at the July meeting. So next month they'll be here with a presentation for both water and sewer audits for 2023. Let's see here. Water rate increases for the PSC are effective 5/29, so the date after our last reading. Our next billing cycle will see the step 1 increase. The PSC would like to see step 2 come into play. They divided those increases out after well 4 is put online, was their second determination for the secondary increase.
What is the average increase on step 1 again?
Off the top of my head, I'm not sure. I think it's
Is it like
somewhere like,
$14 or not?
yeah, somewhere around there. If you're gonna average a residential meter, yeah. 2024 lead and copper rule requires us to identify all public service types within distribution. If you see some of the high school students out or any of our guys in the Gator, they're helping to populate those. By populating and identifying curb stops, we're able to attach a record for the public services for the DNR. So we've been around town, it looks like Gophers have been down a couple neighborhoods here.
And they're not only doing public, they're doing private too. Right?
Well, so that curb stop will be the center point to identify in either direction. So I do have all of the private services identified, but the public side, we have to go off of what's underground. So basically as-built, and some of our records are less than fantastic. So we're doing a little bit of a deep dive. Some of them we can determine just by the age. So if it was built in, 95, we're with 95% certainty that is copper that was put into place during that reconstruction. So some of it we can go off Dodge County land records, and I've used the appraisal records, things like that to determine, as well as the as-built that we have on file. So we have to date about 1,000 done, so only 1,100 left to go. And by October of 2024, we'll be fine. We're also populating all the fire flows within the system too, so those will be available at a glance with this flushing cycle. We met with Lane Tank today and Dodge County Emergency System, so we're going through what they're gonna need to keep emergency systems operating while they also have the ability to rehab their current system. So they're running new cable, what did they call it, microwave antennas, different things they're putting to that corral on the top of the tower. So we're trying to ensure that they have minimal interruptions during this process, and 911 services aren't interrupted. What we did learn through this process was that equipment was there, and some of you might have been here for this. That equipment was there specifically for the city of Mayville, because Mayville is in a hole. Dodge County purchased that at one time or another, just specifically so Mayville could operate through that process.
So when are they starting?
So the start date, it's all weather dependent. We kicked Brownsville down the list, so we get to go first. He's not too mad, we're fine. But we're looking at June 17th for a start date. And then weather dependent, they go interior if it's not looking very nice outside, and they can hop back to the exterior.
And what, they give you 45 working days? Or 50?
Yeah.
45?
45. And
You should get it back online right before corn patch starts.
so that's the goal. That's kind of why we kicked Brownsville down the line a little bit. It worked out okay, so we're good. Any questions on water?
No questions, we're doing on the wastewater report.
All right, Dayton Street Lift Station transducer lost function and needed to be replaced. We learned that the backup floats in this station are not true backup floats, which means we get a lot of alarms, and we're looking into the cost to restructure to make those a true backup float should that transducer go down. My experience, the average transducer life is about 7 to 8 years. This one wasn't even close, but the last one was an emergency situation where I think they borrowed one just to get us back in service quickly. So we got about 1.5 years out of the last used product. We had a backup in Grand Boulevard. We brought in West Bend to televise quick for us and ended up replacing a section of pipe due to collapse. This is our second repair on Grand Boulevard. For sewer collapses, it was about 2 years ago. I think both the manholes had pretty much fallen in. I remember bringing pictures in at the time where they had collapsed. So those 2 manholes are fixed.
How does that happen?
Well, it's clay and it's quite old.
There's not enough pitch there either.
Yeah, there's no pitch on that
There's
street.
no trucks or nothing when I go over it.
The pitch isn't what it should be on Grand Boulevard.
60s, Mike, late 60s?
Late 50s. or-
Late 50s, 60s for installation on that street. It's on our capital improvement list. Probably one that should be moving up the list, should we start getting some of these streets done. The remainder of the street, we ran the camera down the line. Every joint is offset. There's no pitch.
Homeowner have damage in the house, or was?
Some water to clean up, but he was pretty gracious. So he's the dead end on the line too. So that also is something without pitch well, he should be flowing pretty well now, but we'll see. I guess by the time if we keep repairing main, we'll be almost to the
But
end
you
of
didn't
grant,
see
it's
any
not too
roots
long.
set up there, huh? No roots.
There's plenty of roots there. The joint offsets are, I mean, some of them are 6 inches or better on the joints shifting. They're pretty bad. So I can only imagine why it doesn't flow very well. But it's on our list, but it's probably third down the list of capital improvements for streets, just the other ones are worse, so. Decisions on that one. Lift station preventive maintenance work is complete, as well as the generator PM work. That'll be happening next week. And the state of Wisconsin, they do our boiler inspections as well. That'll be happening at the end of the month. So probably, it should be the last in the cycle with plant renovations to have this boiler on their schedule then. We should be able to eliminate that
So
issue.
no one won't have a boiler?
It'll be a boiler.
But this one's going.
Yeah.
The dinosaur is out.
But it'll be replaced with new.
And then we had, lastly, I guess, a clarifier breaker that we've been, last month we talked, we've been having issues with a lot of the electrical tripping at the treatment plant. We finally found one, it's been replaced. The parts to do this are becoming pretty hard to come by and to bring to code. So Sound Electric reviewed other areas that we were concerned about. So we're hoping this gets us through and this keeps us going. He feels pretty
And
confident.
that'll all be replaced with all.
Yeah, so that's where we sit at it, like, do we want to replace it? Do we just need to get through for now is where we sit on a lot of these. We're trying not to spend anything on replacements, but I also can't not have power at the plant. So that's a problem, especially when we learn that if something trips within the plant, it's not actually set up to alarm because the generator did lose power. So if the outside feed is fine, none of our alarms go off that the plant isn't functioning, which is just a bit scary. Questions on wastewater?
And I had a question on water. Can we go back to that? Did you have a fire rating inspection from the state? How did we do on that?
With the fire department?
No, this would have been with the state of Wisconsin. I heard that you had flush hydrants and this stuff from the state. Was there?
Oh, I think he works through the fire department, for the insurance rating.
Right.
Is that, so I didn't hear anything after that. I believe they were happy with everything. I know I had sent our GIS mapping system with all the fire flows that were documented in there. They had asked a couple
So
questions.
that is kind of important. It has to do
Yeah.
with our homeowner rates for insurance and that.
Right,
But you didn't hear anything how we did.
I did not hear, no. So I can ask the fire department for if there's a report that came out of that.
Anything else on wastewater? Now we'll move on to discuss possible action regarding resolution 0001-2024, a resolution to approve electronic compliance maintenance annual report, CMAR.
Yep.
This is a yearly thing.
Yep, this is the annual compliance report that comes with a resolution. Just simply stating that the commission read, adopted, and agrees with the report that we had filled out. Basically everything sewer that we've done. Did everybody get a chance to read that over or have any questions on that? So it's a graded report, basically. Some of which we cannot help. I think the only thing that we didn't look, it wasn't terrible, it was a 90 instead of 100%, but was the influent BOD loadings, which is something we can't,
Now you look at this thing, you
Control.
never know we needed a sewer plant.
we're surviving.
Upgrade. I'll make a motion to approve the CMAR. Second that.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Now we'll take roll call on that.
Alderperson Newman,
Aye.
Leibniz.
Aye.
Commissioner Engel,
Aye.
Springs,
Aye.
Casper.
Aye.
And Bushki.
Aye. Discussion and possible action
Just the rest.
regarding potential industrial chloride fee structure and testing.
Not as detailed as it could have been here, but we've had multiple conversations going back and forth about our limitations for chlorides, our discussion was regarding Seneca. Mike Kelly in the lab and I met with Seneca recently. They're pretty confident that all their issues are fixed. They've been staffing turnover, just no knowledge of the building whatsoever, and some plumbing issues as well. We're not gonna be able to tell if they're in compliance until they actually run corn and peas and see what those results look like. But we're working closely with them as well as the DNR. I don't believe we need any sort of decision tonight more than an update, but the DNR would like us to look into fees associated with our regular testing. And I know that can be kind of a touchy subject with the,
Well, they still
getting
spray their
additional-
irrigation fields with that to cut down on the chlorides we get, right?
Right.
For corn, but not for peas, right?
I think that's a scenario. I don't quite understand fully their operation, but the corn, I think the corn chlorides seem to be a bit higher. So it's their rinse water and their packing materials and things like that that go into the canning operation as well. We used to be in compliance and they've looked into, Seneca's been absolutely amazing to work with. But they think they have everything under control. We're just not gonna be able to tell. But something that's gonna come up and probably be enforced by the DNR is looking into associating fees for all industries, for
So
chlorides,
basically, see how this year goes and go from there.
pretty much. So I don't, it changed, since the agenda came out a little bit, but I don't think we necessarily need a decision more than just a update and discussion.
I heard they're looking at it down here and they're not gonna do as much there this year.
And why is that?
Too much inventory.
Yeah.
Too much sitting around, so they
I
didn't
know
plant as much.
They wiped out inventory early COVID. So I don't know if that back stock is there yet or.
That's what I heard. Not as many truckloads of peas and corn, but we'll see. A lot of times they ship it in from other plants too.
Right.
So we basically can sit and wait on that. There is no, so our limit on chlorides is 555, and I could be very, very wrong here, but they asked what number they need to be at. I mean, it's gonna depend on a lot of different things. I can't give them an exact number that they're gonna need to match. I don't think there's any mathematical way to do that necessarily, but I'm sure there is, but. I don't
Well, we
know
gotta
what it is.
take flow, right? Take the
Well, yeah,
volume
flow
that
comes
they use.
into, yeah, it all, and then what the flows of the community are coming into that
Right.
versus what Seneca's flows are. There's a lot of factors.
Engineer ought to be able to figure that out.
I know, I've been kind of eyeing them up here, you saw that, right?
Both, oh, yeah.
All three. But, yeah, that's pretty much it with the chloride update, but it's likely to come down the line, but we hope to have I don't want to charge anybody, but that may be something we have to look at.
So you said our limit is what, and we're at what?
Well, we're at 555 milligrams per liter, and Seneca sometimes sits like, they're all over the place. I can have a 10,000 coming in, I could have a 600 coming in, I think we've reached as high as 40,000, it's all across the board. So their small portion that comes into the treatment plant, a 40,000 can totally overwhelm me, or if our flows are also high, maybe.
Does it have anything to do with the day they clean up down there, when they shut down, that they dumping all this down the sewer?
Like last year, they were consistently high month to month. When they did say they found a plumbing issue something was plumbed backwards the way that it should have been with some softening
Because like
equipment.
for corn, they clean about every 2 days, and I'd be
Yeah.
interested to see how much your chlorides go on.
If
a
that
daily
corresponds with
right?
those cleaning days. Yeah,
That'd be interesting to find out for me.
when they fixed the plumbing issue, we did see a decrease in the chloride. So we're hoping it was that backwash or the plumbing issue that was solved.
We'll wait and see. Anything else anybody would like to discuss?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Next meeting, July 2nd.
Is everybody okay with
6
that?
o'clock.
Don't make any difference to me. I'll say.
July 2nd, okay with everybody, or would you like me to look into, I didn't know what the 4th of July holiday,
Yeah, what is it, who's taking off anyway? Getting out of here?
not me, but
I'll be on my job.
Yeah?
You'll be what?
I'll be on my job.
We have overtime.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
You don't get anything.
holiday pay, right? Right?
Yeah.
Good night, everyone.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you.
Coming.